Welcome to this first of 4 videos on resilience. This video series intends to provide you with a full toolkit of resilience tools that should make your personal and professional life much easier in times of change and distress. My name is Jonathan Schauder, and this video series is based on my text, Stress Intelligence, which hopefully you have a copy of in front of you, or you can purchase at www.thechangestore.com. References to the main elements of the book are made in the video so that you can follow along. The video series comes in 4 parts. This video is about strengthening your own self-awareness and your own inner strength. We then move on to interacting with others, planning and decision-making, and of course we culminate in life planning and time management, where resilience really comes together. So here's where our journey starts. And that's the common misperception that all stress is bad stress. Of course, there's 2 different types of stress. There's good stress, the stress that gets us up in the morning, gets us alert, gets our heart beating. And then there's bad stress or distress, the stress that brings us down, ruins our performance, and of course leads to mental health issues if left for too long. Resilience, as a definition, is of course our ability to deal with distress and perform even though our situation may be distressing. The inverted U curve, which is in the diagram on this slide, you can see that at a certain point, whilst we need stress to get to peak performance, at a certain point too much stress leads us to be in a state of distress or dysfunction. So what's the tipping point? And what's the critical starting point on our journey to resilience? Well, resilience requires us to understand one simple idea, and that is that uncertainty is where we tip over from stressful to distressful situations. Stress management, therefore, and therefore our resilience toolkit, begins with us understanding between what we are certain about and can therefore act on, and what we are uncertain about or can't control and therefore need to accept and find some other way. So concept number 1 for your toolkit is this whole idea of where does stress come from? And to introduce you to this concept, we would normally just talk about a thing called your internal voice, which as a psychologist is the most important idea in genuine psychological discipline. If you can hear your internal voice, then you can manage your internal voice, you can keep yourself under control. But for the purpose of resilience, we need to expand that idea, that in fact there are 3 voices: the cognitive voice, the emotional voice, and the physical voice. Let's quickly go through them. The cognitive voice is often considered the self, and is the internal monologue that we hear throughout the entire day and through the entire night if not controlled properly. The internal voice is probably the key indicator that we've moved from a state of good stress to distress. The emotional voice, of course, can't be ignored, and it's how we feel and intuit the world. We often feel very sad or happy, and our emotions need to be managed. We find that emotional management comes primarily from understanding meaning and making connection. This is what a therapist or a counsellor would take you through if you needed assistance. The physical voice is obviously the one that you hear through pain. Pain cannot be ignored, which means that often the physical voice is the one we have to listen to first because it drowns out the other 2 voices. Eating well, exercise, meditating, and other physical activities that help us to calm down and improve our healthy well-being are often the starting point for a resilience journey. We're going to focus, however, in this video series on the cognitive voice. And so we end up at the jumping off point for the notion of cognitive tools. The cognitive toolkit starts with a 1950s prayer called the Serenity Prayer. If you've never heard of it before, please pause this video and Google it, look it up, read about it. It's one of the most important psychological ideas ever revealed to humanity, even though it wasn't revealed by a psychologist. The notion of the Serenity Prayer basically separates the idea that we should control what we can, accept what we can't change, and most importantly, have the wisdom to know the difference. In looking at this kind of prayer, we can see a contents page for the kind of toolkit that we need to look at. Where we're going to kick it off is a critical Harvard tool called the 5 Ps. It's a cognitive tool that allows you to look at something, untangle all the string, that might be tangled in a ball at the moment to quite completely and systematically understand where things are within your control, where they are not within your control, and where you can now make a difference. The 5 Ps tool is quite simply one of those everyday tools that is going to make life easier. A combination of 5 key words that all start with the letter P. The idea of the 5 Ps is to untangle any situation you might be in. The 5 Ps are the purpose. In other words, what risk does this activity minimize, or what opportunity does this activity take, and therefore why is it meaningful? Product, that's the one that's most misunderstood. If we start with our purpose, of course, at a certain point we will produce something. Well, what does that thing that we produce look like and feel like? Is it a document? Is it something verbal? Is it very formal? Is it very informal? Is it very complete? Is it very quick? What's the quality of it? These are the product elements. How far can we get in the time that we've got? The process, of course, is the steps that we're going to take to get from our purpose to our product, and includes all the milestones along the way. The people is all about the roles of the individuals involved, and that's a very important idea because not everyone is going to be in command and not everyone is going to be doing the work. So how do we understand who does what as this process rolls on, and can the process accommodate all the people's needs? And finally, the preparation is asking ourselves about the gaps before we start. Have we really got everything that we need to start this journey? Have we spoken to everyone we need to speak to? And do we have the templates and the practice all in place so that this particular activity is made easy? This is the resilience moment. All that's left is an exercise for you to do. Pause this video and have a look down at the exercise book in front of you, or otherwise just stay with me and listen to the exercise. What I'd like you to do is take a complicated, or perhaps even daily, activity that you're involved in at the moment that you'd like to practice with. Look at it as a task where there is some sort of stress. The good stress is the stuff you already know how to do. You're going to get a whole lot of stuff done. The distress is where there's uncertainty and grey space. The activity, try to break down this task using the 5 Ps. What is its purpose? What risk does it mitigate? What opportunity does it take? What is its product? If we're talking about a report, is it a really thick report? Is it a 1-page report? Is it a 3-dot point report? In terms of the people, who's involved in this? Who are the decision makers? Where does the power lie? And in terms of the process, what are the normal steps that we take? Now that you're looking at those steps, are they the best steps? Could we cut out steps? Do we need to add a step? And in terms of preparation, I guess the obvious question is, given that you've probably done this before, can you replicate a process that worked well? What can we already learn from previous activities that we can bring to this new activity? So let's close off on this exercise. I'm going to assume that you've had a chance to do the exercise and you're looking at your review sheet with your 5 Ps breakdown of the activity there in front of you. What I'm hoping you're going to discover is that you were able to pause on the purpose of the activity and ask yourself, am I really certain about that? Was it a financial purpose? Was it a confidence building purpose? Was it a social purpose? Was it simply a connection purpose? How did that affect the product? Hopefully you found a way to make the product simpler. Instead of doing 18 pages of report, maybe you could get away with doing 3 pages of report. Instead of having a 10-person meeting, maybe you only needed 5 people for that meeting, or maybe you found the opposite. In terms of the process, maybe you did find an extra step that you needed to do which would give everyone confidence and therefore reduce the stress of the activity, or maybe we needed to cut out 4 or 5 steps that people are feeling intimidated by, or perhaps aren't contributing enough value to merit getting everyone together. In terms of the people, well, I hope you were able to pause on who needs to be in command, who needs to be consulted, and perhaps where the agreements need to be made. In doing so, understanding how you can progress this past different gateways and different authorities in a systematic way. And finally, in terms of preparation, I'm hoping that this analysis makes the next version of this activity even more effective. Thanks for giving it a go. So that's the end of video 1, the idea of creating certainty in order to increase resilience. Check out my other 5 books if you'd like to know more about leadership and other management skills. But to continue this study in resilience, please go to videos 2, 3 and 4 that you'll find on your learning management system or off my website, www.thechangestore.com. Otherwise, check out my other services at www.thechangeagentnetwork.com.au. Thanks very much and see you in the next video.